Hacksaw. 2x4, it is Hacksaw, tough guy. Knowing it's the Hacksaw Hour. 2x4, it is Hacksaw, tough guy. Knowing it's the Hacksaw Hour.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of the Hacksaw Hour. And of course, I am joined here on YouTube by none other than the Hall of Famer himself, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Jim, what's going on, man?
Well, Marcus, I'm fired up like everybody else. This WrestleMania coming up, so let's go together, baby. Ho! I tell you, can't help but be fired up for WrestleMania. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, WrestleMania is like the Super Bowl. It's like the World Series. Just a huge event to be a part of, and man, it's exciting actually to be out there in that ring. And so everybody's fired up. Even all us old timers going to WrestleCon, I believe it is.
That's right, WrestleCon. Not only yourself, but legends like Jake, like Ted DiBiase, like Arn Anderson.
You said Jake was going to be there?
Oh man, you hopefully
pull me out of that one. I saw Jake this past weekend, and we got kind of a running rib. You know, he got all his pictures laid out. And I had my hat down, my coat up. I snuck up. I messed up all his pictures, you know. The guy with it got hot. Hey, buddy. I'm like, but he started all that stuff, so.
Oh, so he started it. So that's just
he knocked my 2x4s over like a big Jenga game or Jenga. What is it?
Yeah, that does sound like Jake.
I have a bunch of 1-foot 2x4s at autograph sessions, you know. I couldn't bring the big ones. People were hitting each other and just turning around. Hey, what's the old Abbott Costello thing, right? Huh? What? Boom, boom.
Man, so you guys were just there at Squared Circle Expo, and like I said, now you guys are out at WrestleCon, so this is going to drop on Thursday. You guys are at WrestleCon all weekend long. So, fans, if you're going to be in the Philadelphia
I think you're going to make it too, aren't you, Marcus? You're going to be there.
I'm hoping so. My basement flooded, so I'm not going to get there on Thursday now.
Oh, shoot. That's right.
I might get there on Friday, so we'll see. I'm going to do my best.
Well, I was looking forward. Of all the times we've talked, we never met.
Yeah.
That'd probably be the end of the show after I meet you, after all I heard about you from Jake. I mean, holy smokes.
Well, you can't believe that.
It can't be that bad, brother.
You can't believe a word that guy says. But no, I might still make it out there on Friday, so I'll do my best. Hopefully we can grab lunch and get to see some of our listeners out there, Jim. But
it's amazing how many folks just at that Square Circle come up and enjoy the podcast, man. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
You know, you talked me into this. I really wasn't into it in the beginning. You know, I'm like, I don't know. And then you're like, yeah, we'll do the podcast, and then we'll stick it on YouTube. I'm like, never like, I don't know. You still got a rotary phone.
Man, it's going like gangbusters. And let me say, Jim, I'm not blowing smoke. I see a lot of people here on YouTube and just message me.
I was earlier.
Maybe I will later. But a lot of folks will message me on Twitter and say that's the best wrestling podcast out there today, and it's because of you and your enthusiasm. So, man, I'm excited about it.
The other guys are like, yeah, he was a pain in the ass. This guy was a son of a gun. This guy was a jack off. This guy,
yeah,
brother, was it that bad?
Everybody wants to bury everybody on these podcasts.
Everybody wants to bury everybody. What the hell? It was a great time. I had a good time in the dressing room. Playing cards and everything. I told you that we had to quit playing cards, right? Vince wouldn't even let us play cards.
Why?
Oh, you believe it? Well, actually, there's a pretty good reason. You'd be sitting there going, dun, 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 dun. Is that my music? Oh, shit, that's my music. Where's my 2x4?
I guess that is a pretty decent reason.
And I told you one time I put my cards in my knee pad. I forgot all about them. And all of a sudden in my match, I forgot all about him. I'm out in the ring. I'm working. Bing, bing, boom. Pick the guy up, slam him. I hit the ropes, drop the big knee. It's like a magic trick. Cards go flying everywhere, man.
Was it a good hand? Did you have to scoop it back up?
Chief J. Strong was like, Duggan, where those cards come from, my guy? I don't know, Chief. Somebody must have thrown them in the ring.
That guy I beat must have dropped him.
Yeah, I got so much heat they were throwing cards at us.
Now that's heat. Well, look, I'm really excited about our topic this week, Jim, because this week marks 35 years ago that WrestleMania 5 happened. And your feud with Bad News Brown Man, there is a lot to cover. But before we get into it, I want to remind listeners that this topic, WrestleMania 5, is being covered on both of my other podcasts, The Snake Pit with Jake Roberts and Everybody's Got a Pod with Ted DiBiase. So
You're
Jake's is
talking to
available.
everybody, brother. Smokes. You're talking to everybody.
That's it. And so sort of the idea here, Jim, is that like I've got a unique opportunity here. I talked to three of the biggest stars of the golden era of professional wrestling, and you guys were all there
Who are
for
the other
these
two
major
guys?
events. You guys were all there for these big events, and I'm like, I mean, what if we talk about this topic with all three of you and get all three of your Hall of Fame perspectives? That's kind of what we're doing here. So, guys, go and check out the Snake Pit with Jake Roberts, and the one with DiBiase is going to come out on Friday, April 5th. So, go out of your way to check them out, so you can get the full story on this event, right, Jim?
Oh yeah, man. I tell you, Teddy and Jake, their perspective, they're two different perspectives. I mean, they talk about two different ends of the spectrum. Jake the Snake Roberts and Theodore $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. Yeah, they ran in different circles, brother.
They did, and it's funny hearing from both of them because like
They're
they
big
are
different
very.
perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very different guys, but what's interesting is like their opinions on wrestling completely align all the time.
And plus, also, Marcus, they're both second generation guys. And
Yes.
so they got so much more insight into wrestling. That's what I said. I put Ted over all the time. I came into Mid-South and they put me in the Rat Pack. Bill Watts was smart enough to realize I needed to learn how to work. He put me with Teddy. Ted, second generation. Any of the second generation guys are just that much more polished. They were in the ring earlier. I didn't start till I was 25, so I had a lot to learn. So both Ted and Jake, second generation, and they've really, as we all have, seen the transition from National Guard armories and high school gyms to WrestleMania.
Man, it's incredible what you guys have all seen and done. And yeah, like just the little nuanced tricks of the trade that I hear from them and from you. I mean, that piece of info you gave me about stepping out on the opposite side of the ring of where your guy went out, like
Oh yeah.
it's a small detail, but it just builds anticipation. So, man, I love getting to talk to you guys. I'm glad we're all talking about Mania 5 here. Let's go ahead and jump into these notes. Following the Royal Rumble, it's reported that Dusty Rhodes officially resigned from the NWA and was set to return to Florida, where he purchased 60% of the nearly dormant Florida Championship Wrestling territory. So, I mean, Dusty's this legendary figure in wrestling. And the reason I bring him up is not because you were working with him at the time, but I know you have a lot of history with Dusty. And the rumor has it that he had a tendency to position himself at the expense of other talents at times and kind of push himself when he had the book. So I'm wondering, was that your experience with Dusty? Did you view him as kind of a political guy?
I've found very few bookers that are in the ring bookers that don't put themselves over. Vince Russo makes himself world champion.
That's a glaring one.
I mean, it's just, it takes a good booker to take the back seat. Of course, Dusty was a great booker. Can't take nothing away from Dusty. And he put himself on top, but he carried the load. He wasn't up there and they weren't drawing a house. Dusty was up there, and everybody knows American Dream, the big elbow. We did first blood matches back in the day. I mean, Dusty is Dusty, the Mount Rushmore guy. But, yeah. So, yeah, I could see him. Yeah. And anybody, when I came in, I did everything I could to push myself and get myself over anybody else. That's the name of the business. It's the big leagues, caps and sleeves. Everybody wants to move up. Everybody's jockeying for position. The wrestling handshake, it's how you doing as they stab you in the back.
Hard to blame Dusty. Plus, to your point, he was incredibly over and he's getting these big crowd reactions. It's like, why wouldn't I push myself?
Yeah. Yeah. He carried the load. Why? And he was a proven commodity. If he took it over the deal, it's his money. Go ahead and you wanted to succeed. You don't want to take a chance on one of these young guys that may make it or may not. The Renegade. I don't know if you met him or Renegade. He did Ultimate Warrior gimmick. They thought they were going to put the big gas and he was going to become a huge star. Fizzled, So if I was Dusty, I'd stick with a proven commodity. Him. Plus,
Now,
plus it's a better payoff, right? What the hell?
absolutely. Now, at the time, did you feel like the Florida territory was just dead? Or, when you hear that Dusty's about to take it over, is it like, oh, well, maybe there's something there?
Marcus, by now you should know not to ask me any office stuff.
Ah, okay.
I had no idea what's going on down there in Florida, man. I was living in my own little cocoon up there in the WWF. And plus, you were working all the time, And when I wasn't working, I was with my family. So, yeah, I really wasn't concerned about what was going outside my little orbit.
It was just WWF and family, and that's it. Your only
And
focuses.
that's all you had time for. I mean, it wasn't a job; it was a lifestyle. You're on the road a lot.
Now, Dusty is not going to be the only departure from NWA at this time. JJ Dillon makes the jump to the WWF, and it's reported he'll be working in an office role as an assistant booker and as a point of contact to possibly bring more talents from NWA to WWF. I know JJ was a journeyman wrestler before he became a manager. Jim, did you get a lot of time around him?
A little bit, not a whole lot. JJ was the Ric Flair, DiBiase, GQ group. JJ and I were never really close at all. I wouldn't say. We say hello to each other. We're congenial to each other, but yeah, I wouldn't say we were friends.
Did
We
you ever?
see each other nowadays. Nowadays, of course, when you see another old timer, like, holy smokes, brother, it's great to see you. At Squared Circle, it took a half hour to get to the table. Brother, brother. Brother!
Now, I know that JJ was a wrestler before he became a manager. Did you ever wrestle him?
No.
Ah,
Yeah, I don't know
okay.
where he worked at, but I never saw him in the ring. Only time I ran across him was down there, I think, in Georgia Championship Wrestling when I was Big Jim Duggan, and I think he was managing back then, if I remember correctly.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, he was always because when I knew him, I was Jabroni Jim, So,
Still
like I
moving
said,
your way up.
I still reckon I could tell you, I'm in Greenville tonight. Recognize the lights.
Well, sadly, a sad note here moving into Mania is as they're building their way toward it, Paul Boesch is going to pass away after a heart attack. Jim, what can you tell us about your experiences around Paul Boesch as a promoter and a man?
Paul, first off, was an unbelievable human being. I mean, little know. He wrote a book. It was called Forest in Hell, and it's about his time in World War II, and he was in the Harrigan Forest, and all this. He doesn't talk about. It was like a first lieutenant or something. He was up there pretty good, but he doesn't talk about killing the enemy. He was talking about saving all the people around him. Of course, it was a huge battle, and uh, just on a personal level, it was an honor to meet the guy. And he was a big man. He liked other big men. And then, of course, he had these huge cauliflower ears. They were giant. I mean, even nowadays, guys do that like on purpose. Hit me in the ear, hit me in the ear. They want to get that cauliflower ear. So, yeah, I'm a wrestler. I look tough. But Paul, he had those big, huge cauliflower ears, and the top diamond jewelry place in Houston. They put an earring on his ear, and it was a commercial. Everybody in Houston will remember. They pan around, and it's got this big earring hanging down. If it makes my ears look good, but then now on a professional level now, because the first time I met Paul, when excuse me, I was working in Pensacola. As Wild Man Duggan, I had the fur, the capes and crowns. Oh, excuse me, cape and crown. I had the fur with the chains on it, and I was the bushwhackers were there. There were the sheep herders back then. Joe LeDuc. I was living on the beach. I had a 500 a night guarantee. I was living with a hot little stripper. Things were going pretty good. Buck Robley calls me and goes, "Hey, we got a hell of a spot for you here in Houston." And I'm like, "Well, Buck, things are going pretty good here in Pensacola."
Who'd want to leave the
So
bushwhackers
Brody
and the
calls me.
stripper?
I met both Buck and Brody in Atlanta in Georgia Championship Wrestling. And when Ole came in, I didn't get along with Ole, so I went with Fuller to Pensacola. So after a few months down there, and then Brody called me. He says, "Hey, get your butt out here to Houston." So my first night and meeting Paul Boesch I worked Houston, the old Sam Houston Coliseum. What a wrestling building, man! They served alcohol there.
Oh
You know,
boy.
not just beer. So sometimes it happened in the ring with you. You know, they'd be pretty because that was before sports entertainment. You think it's fake? Sign the waiver. You come up here, and we'll show you if it's fake or not. So every day, I'll try them. You're
So
like, Doc, come here.
these guys are signing the waiver right there on the spot and trying to come up and
Well,
fight
it
you.
didn't really happen that often. And once in a great while.
Wow.
We had, like I said, they'd roll around with Steve Williams. They'd bring
Yeah.
him down to the with the boys club in Shreveport. That's where they'd stretch them. But
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
so I went into Houston. I worked with Brody on top, and I go up to Mr. Bosch, and he hands me my envelope, and I'm like, oh great, you know. And I run back to the bathroom stall and I open it up. It was $1,000. Ooh. Whoa, like they got me. I'm hooked. I'm like, all right, I'll get my U-Haul. I'll be right here, you know. So I came to San Antonio, and that's where I became Hacksaw, of course, and had the 2x4 and all that. But then back when Bill Watts took over Houston, because I had small experience with Paul when I was with World Class Wrestling.
Yep.
But I would, you know, he didn't even know who I was. You know, but I did a couple of Houston shows with Gino. And then, of course, when Bill Watts took over Houston, all the experienced guys was there. There goes the last good payoff guy. Paul was good to the wrestlers. He took care of the boys. He had a nurse there. Of course, was Bad Breath Sally, but at least she was a nurse. And you really have to be hurting to go see her. But I mean, he was ahead of the time where he had a nurse because you know, could you get hurt back then? That's where I had that bad head injury. Was in Houston.
Wow. All right. So, I mean, that's what Jake and Ted both said, that he was like notoriously fair to the boys. Like he'd always do fair payoffs and just like a really well respected guy.
Yeah, he was quite a guy. Yeah.
Now, I know that you knew Gino Hernandez really well, and the rumor was always that Gino was Bosch's illegitimate son. Did you believe it?
Well, I was so green back then, brother. You know, I had just broke in. I only hit the ropes a few times. David Manning was the referee at the World Class. Excuse me. So I went down to the sportatorium. I hit the ropes a few times, took a couple of bumps. And then I was with Gino. I'd drive around with Gino. He was, because I had making no money. I was working, unloading fruit trucks. And Gino was bringing me around. They let me stay with him, which was big for and in football. You're used to people being nice to you. I'm a football player. Oh, good. Come here. We'll take care of you. Wrestling, you know, it's a different world. And Gino took me under his wing. And so, of course, I never asked him. And I've been running around with gorgeous Gino Hernandez, you know, during the disco era. He had a great big caddy, you know, he had all the gold chains. He looked gorgeous. Always had the right cologne on, you know, and hi, I'm Jim. I'm Gino's friend.
So, what do you think Gino, like, just out of the goodness of his heart, or do you think like he wanted a heater around him, or what do you think the story was?
I don't know. I think we just got along.
Okay, he just liked you
Yeah,
as
I
a
think
guy
we're
and
just
wanted to help
buddies.
you.
Yeah, and we stayed buddies. And it actually, Marcus, it went full circle. Gino was helping me out back then, and then I ended up going on to Mid South, and I got a break at Mid South. I was making good money. I had a nice apartment. I was just living there, and Gino came and stayed with me for a while, and that's when he was having his bad drug problem. Yeah, Gino
Well,
really struggled with the drugs. Yeah.
it's a shame. I'm glad to hear that he helped you out so much. And man, it's like without Paul Boesch bringing you into his territory, who knows how things would have wound up for you? Like you may have
Well,
never
you know,
gotten the
if I
hacksaw
didn't
gimmick.
go to SMU to play football and out of fluke meet Fritz von Erich, I would have
Incredible.
never pursued wrestling. I wasn't a wrestling fan. And, you know, Fritz almost got a little, I'm sure he did get a little heat. Because back then, you know, Mark Lewin and the Spoiler and Gary Hart, I'm a complete outsider. Other guys are really trying to get in, and
Yeah.
I'm total outsider. And he gave me the gift of pro wrestling. And here I'm 40 plus years later, I'm still reaping the rewards of that gift.
Incredible, man.
And I still haven't seen the Claw movie. I'm looking forward to that.
It's good. I will say they don't paint Fritz in a super positive light in it.
No, well, wrestling promoters, there's not a whole lot of good stories. That wrestling promoter was a hell of a guy.
Yeah. So far, the
Paul
only
Boesch,
one.
baby. That's why when Paul died, everybody's like, but I'll tell you, Marcus, I always thought wrestling promoters were bad until I started doing my stand-up show and dealing with comedy promote. Oh my gosh.
Even worse.
Talk about, they're king of their little domain, their little club, and it's sometimes hard to deal with. But
Oh man.
that's
A
why
word to
I'm
the
like,
wise.
Deborah, get him.
I'm sure she doesn't mind. Roll up her sleeves and get after it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's always, even back in the day when we owned a gym in Florida, the guy'd come in like, Hacksaw, I'm supposed to get this painted Monday. I can't get to it till Wednesday. I'm like, yeah, painted Wednesday, Thursday, brother. Get it painted. Deborah come in. Sunday night, the guy's painting. Makes for a good combination.
Absolutely. Well, there is another big piece of news from this time that I would love to get your take on. We've got this from the 22089 Observer. The big media story in wrestling this week is that the ultimate kayfabe violation has taken place, courtesy of Titan Sports and Vince and Linda McMahon. Titan admitted that pro wrestling was fake and that the competitors do everything they can to avoid hurting one another in a New Jersey State Senate hearing on Thursday in hopes of getting pro wrestling taken away from the authority of the State Athletic Commission. And so state law would no longer mandate a doctor in attendance at ringside during pro wrestling exhibitions. Jim, I mean, you have gone to great lengths up to this point to protect kayfabe. I know that guys were getting fired in Mid-South.
Brother.
So
You're burying me. Thanks, Marcus. Jeez. Just get a shovel and bury. Nice doing a show with you. That's it.
Oh no. Oh.
Holy smokes. You remember what happened with me and the Sheik by any chance?
Oh, okay. Yes.
That's
All right.
what killed. I mean, there's so many wrestlers and wrestling fans. Tommy Dreamer's like, you killed kayfabe, Duggan.
Oh no, I didn't even put that
Yeah,
together.
I take a lot of heat for that, but thank you for actually. I probably should put you over putting the heat on Vince and Linda. They can handle the heat, but
I'll
a
ship
lot
it
of
to them.
people say kayfabe died when they popped me and the Sheik together. Yeah, so and I even if I got to get that in. Otherwise, a lot of comments would be like, "Hey, wait a minute, Duggan killed it years before, giving the asshole a ride. I gave him a ride."
That did not even cross my
That
mind
Duggan's
as I'm
gonna have a
reading
ride.
this.
Yeah, sure, jump in.
Man, well, look, Vince took the heat back. He's telling the state athlete. It's not like it's coming out in the paper. He's coming right out and just saying it.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know, Jim. Did it bug you at all, or were you happy that the heat had shifted
No,
to
it
the chairman?
didn't bother me at all. No, because folks that believe it, going to believe it, and folks who don't believe it aren't. You're not going to convince somebody, have a conversation and go, well, he's right. Wrestling's real.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's not competitive. People don't understand the difference. Being real and being competitive is totally different. But no, and plus it not that big of a deal for WWE. What it's a huge deal for is the small independent shows.
Mm.
That's a huge expense for the indie show. You got to pay for a doctor, you got to pay for an ambulance, and that takes, and then all your wrestlers have to be licensed. Why? Everybody, I got a stack of licenses. I should go stick them on eBay with you, brother.
Oh, that's
But I
awesome.
got a
Yeah.
stack of the state licenses and they do nothing for you. It's not like they do nothing except maybe get 10 tickets, for their friends and family to come watch the show. Yeah. For Vince, I don't, he did it for the huge scheme of things. But I think it made a huge difference to the independent guys. And it's still, a lot of states still have to have a commission.
Man, it's crazy that like, he's got to go to these lengths to finally, kind of rid himself of these added expenses. And let's face it, it's probably the state of New York or New Jersey sort of taking advantage here, knowing,
Well, I'm sure they take a huge cut off the top.
yep.
Yeah, they take their percentage, and it's just not New York, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Texas. Everybody had a state commission there for a while. Louisiana, they really hit them. I mean, it was tough. Yeah. So, and of course, they did the WWE to get away from the WWF because Prince Charles supposedly, that's the one little inside deal I heard that he had the World Wildlife Fund and he kind of put pressure on the WWE ref. But
Well, after the Rumble, it's made official that WrestleMania 5 is going to be at Trump Plaza again. What did you think about having it in Trump Plaza 2 years in a row?
yeah, it was cool. It was such a success the first year and so convenient, and everybody had a good time. Atlantic City, a good house. It was great. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Actually, Jake and I met Trump one time. They were dragging us from one end of the building to the other down in the catacombs, and Trump was heading towards us with two bodyguards. They weren't very big, but they had these huge bulges under their shirt. And he stopped, and he was very congenial, said hello and everything. Actually, in my match with Bad News Brown, there's a WWE or F card, a trading card. I think we posted it, right? Of me hitting
Yeah,
Bad News Brown. He's got the chair up, and Trump's sitting ringside watching the match, man. Love or
man,
hate Trump, I mean, to have a ex-president watching you perform,
it's incredible.
yeah, kind of cool. I guess him and Vince were buddies. They did the hair deal in Detroit. So, yeah. So I guess that made sense. Early years, I'm sure Trump gave him a deal on the building. We did Slammy Awards at the Trump building, too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Wow. Oh, would
in
that have been
Atlantic
when?
City. Trump Plaza or Trump Castle. I don't know which it was down there, but one of them was the Slammy Awards were down there, man. 'Cause we
Man.
fought through the showgirls' dressing room.
Yeah, don't let is Deborah in
Harley
earshot?
potatoed the shit out of me. He wasn't looking where he was throwing those punches. This is great, Hacksaw.
Between that and the chicken and throwing like a
Mm.
salad on you, my
Well, I
goodness.
feel bad. I told you now I got Peachy, my chicken. I'd feel bad if somebody killed Peachy. Now I can kind of relate to that guy being hot.
You're making up for it by taking good care of Peachy.
Yeah.
Um, well, any other interactions with Trump or just that one brief kind of,
No, just that,
pass
just
by?
that, yeah, that one deal. Yeah.
Okay. After WrestleMania 3 and that reported 90,000 fans, I mean, and we just saw the clip of you online. You've got 90,000 fans surrounding you chanting USA. I mean, now
God,
you're in,
that was
yeah, I mean, goosebumps.
unbelievable, huh?
Yeah, it was amazing. And I mean, but now you're in front of a crowd of closer to 20,000 for WrestleMania 2 years in a row. I mean, does that feel like a downgrade or were you just happy with the
Well,
change?
I didn't think they could follow. I thought they might have shot their wad there in WrestleMania 3. I don't know how you follow 3. So it may, who knows, Vince's thinking may be like a wrestler's thinking. If you're following a big match, bring it down.
I
Bring
gotcha.
everybody back down. You can't top it. You're not going to top it. So bring it back down and top the next one or the one after. But yeah, hard to top. I'm just speculating, but that might have been, that's what wrestlers do. If the match before you is real hot, sit in a headlock for a little bit, bring them down, and then bring them back up.
Which they did, you're right.
Orchestrate the people. Yeah, orchestrate the people. DiBiase, Jake, Kurt Hennig, guys like that taught me that and that's the term, to orchestrate the folks.
And you're right. WrestleMania 6 the next year in the Sky Dome, it's another huge event. So maybe that's exactly what he was thinking. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
as for
nowadays,
you,
boy, they can't find a place big enough to put it. People are like, I don't like the show nowadays. Somebody's watching it, that's for sure.
and 2 nights in a row now in like a
Yeah,
football stadium. So man, they're doing
yeah,
something right.
yeah. Of
Um,
course, I
I-
joke. I did WrestleMania 3. I was out there. The whole place was rocking USA. I came back to the dress room. All the boys were like, "Hey, Hacksaw, how's the crowd out there? How's the crowd?" I said, "Well, without my glasses, the first 3 rows are full. I don't."
I didn't even think about
U.S.
that. Everybody always said that Stan Hansen, because he
I
couldn't
love
wear his
Stan.
glasses
Good
in the
friend of
ring,
mine. Yeah, Stan
right?
can't see neither. Yeah, that one-man gang can't see too well neither. Yeah, yeah. But 3 blind mice, 3 blind moose.
We hear that Stan Hansen would really bring it on those clotheslines, and it would hit you anywhere from like your forehead down to your stomach.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
man, me and Stan, we had a fight in Japan. Uh, we were so it was 5 weeks in Japan. Stan was there for 3 weeks. We became really close friends. But anyway, we're in this rice joint, this late night. We're both drunk back in the day, and this guy's arguing with Stan. Stan's a Stan Hansen in Japan. He's like Hogan over there or Noki in there. I'm Jim Duggan. Nobody knows who the hell I am. Anyway, Stan's like, "You want me to take my glasses off?" And the guy, "Oh, yeah, finally, Stan take the shit goes down, boom, boom. It doesn't last 15 seconds. More shoving match than punching deal. But everything is made out of like paper over there. The wall falls into the kitchen, the thing falls over. That's broke. Everything broke. I'm like, "Let's run, Stan, run." He goes, "Where are we going to run to?"
the
So
two of
we
you stuck
waited
out.
there, sure as shit. All the police that came with their little helmets, they had the little white gloves, they had their little billy clubs. I was a little worried they're going to work us over a little bit, but they didn't. And they marched us. They didn't. They put us in a car. They marched us to the police station, and the office came down. And Stan was a little worried, because he did a lot of business over there. I'm like, "Yeah, send me home." And but I
Wow.
hadn't been to Japan much after that.
Man, you and Stan Hansen tearing up a room, man, that had to be quite a
I
scene
think
over there.
Stan wrote about it in his book. Yeah, I think Stan wrote about it in his book.
It's all right, I gotta read that
Yeah,
one.
he's a good friend. Yeah, Stan's a good guy and a tough man, one of the legit tough guys.
Now, as for you coming out of the Rumble, you're working with Dino Bravo on the house shows, but it's announced that you're going to be working with Bad News Brown at Mania. It sounds like you suffered a knee injury at this time as well, and you've got Rick Martel and Hillbilly Jim subbing for you on some of these matches. Do you happen to recall what happened to your knee?
Yes, yeah, I had actually that's where Hogan. If you remember back in the old days, I did my 3-point stance. I would dive instead of running. I would dive when I get close to the guy and dive through it and clothesline the guy.
Yeah.
And this one time in particular, I was down my 3-point stance. I run and down and dove, and I stuck my left leg out a little bit. It tore the ligament,
Ooh.
and so that I had, it's a pretty quick surgery. So I was back relatively soon. But anyway, Hulkster's the guy that comes up to me and he goes, "Duggan," he says, "Why are you diving?" He says, "Just run through it." Like, that sounds like a good idea. So I did and just run through the clothesline, and that was much more easy. Well, there's Peachy right there.
All right, Bill.
Instead of run through the clothesline and instead of diving, and that much easier on your body, And funny, Hulkster, smartened me up about that, where, he was dropping on his butt every night. Has all that bad, back problems he does. But he was instrumental in me changing it from diving to running.
It probably added a couple years on your career.
Much easier, yeah, shoot, yeah. At the end, and that's what I told kids, as I got older, when I was in the ring, I have no physical attributes at 60 plus, but I can still entertain a crowd. It's more than taking bumps. It's having a ring entrance, a ring presence, being able to tell a story, and it's not just bumps.
Charisma. Yeah,
Yeah.
being able to whip the crowd into a frenzy.
And of course, carrying the American flag, chanting USA, and it comes from the heart. You can't help, but people still want to do that. God bless us.
One thing that stuck out to me as really odd during this entire lead up to Mania is that even though they've announced that you're going to be working with Bad News Brown, you don't work with him a single time on the way to Mania on the house
Yeah,
on the house
that
shows.
was weird.
Yeah, and like you guys are on the same shows, but you're working with Dino Bravo and King Haku. So I mean, do you know why that would have been the case?
I have no idea why they put us together. It made no sense at all. I was just glad to be part of the show.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but you do a promo on the way there. You're on the Brother Love show, and you start like you make it interesting because you start to say like, "Oh, well, there's these differences between me and Bad News. Like he's from the city, I'm from a small town," and you start like talking about all the differences, and it's like, "Oh, okay, like these two are opposites, and they're gonna meet. They're both badass fighters, so should be
A good
good." So
promo then.
yeah, it sort of saved the angle because, like, really, it's DiBiase on the same card. He's working with Beefcake, and it's just a cold rivalry. There's nothing on TV to show fans like why they're upset at each other. It just happened. So
Wow.
really, I think that promo on the Brother Love show kind of got people excited about this.
Well, good. That's good to hear, man. Yeah, my promos were pretty good. I was happy with most of my promos. There's some of them on YouTube. Oh my gosh.
There are some reports originally that you were set to work with Ron Bass at WrestleMania 5, but Bass is going to leave the company before the big event. What were your experiences like around Ron? Did they talk to you at all about a feud with him?
No, no, brother. Yeah, I wasn't ever enough confident to go into the office and say, "Hey, who am I working with at WrestleMania?" You
They just
know.
told you and you did it.
Yeah, I was just kind of yeah. I didn't even know it might have been Ron. I had no idea. At least I don't remember that. No, but Ron, I knew Ron for a while. We got along okay. I knew him in the territory. So Bad News, I didn't know well at all. So that was a cold match. I hadn't worked with him at all. And of course, as you know, I don't know if you've watched the tape. At the end of the match, the booger. I have a booger come out, man, and things like this, and I'm the booger's flipping around like. So we
Well,
get back to the dressing room, and I figured it was a booger. I had no idea it was like a foot long or whatever. Right? And I get back, and Bad News keeps kind of hot. Oh, Jesus Christ, that kind of took away from everything. I'm like, what? Well, that damn booger's hanging out of your nose.
is he saying that the booger got over more than the match?
Yeah, well, it says a lot about the match.
Yeah, really. So you have some confidence in
The
yourself,
booger
man. I'm
stole
sure
the
it was
show.
fine. Well, let's get to Mania while we're talking about it. It's going to draw record money despite the much smaller crowd than WrestleMania 3 due to higher ticket pricing. So Vince still got his
Yeah.
at the end of the day. Yeah. Before we get to your match, let's talk about Hogan and Savage. It's a year-long program, and it gets its big blow-off here as the Mega Powers explode at WrestleMania. And Hogan's going to defeat Savage to win the belt. And, Meltzer's opinion on it, and the opinion of a lot of fans, is that Randy was just red hot as a heel champion. So, a lot of people are saying it wasn't the right time to put the belt back on Hogan. To me, Hogan's the biggest draw in the history of wrestling, so it's probably never a bad time to put the belt on him. I don't know. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I'm not sure how long Macho had it. Had he had it a long time?
I think it was since the previous WrestleMania, so about a year he was running with it,
Yeah.
but he had only just became a heel like a couple months before.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you can always second guess, but hard to argue with success. That was WrestleMania 5,
Yep.
and we're talking about WrestleMania whatever
40.
number. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that might have been the right decision. I don't. It
I'm
didn't
thinking
kill the business, that's for sure.
I'm thinking they did the right thing.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, there's always nuances, and who you think and would do better or not. But either one of those guys, Hogan, Macho, they're your marquee guys. And to
1A and
this day,
1B.
I mean, I'm sure you got an oh yeah. Let me hear your oh yeah, brother.
Oh man, let me give it a shot.
Oh
Oh yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. Every time I autograph session, everybody's got an oh yeah for me. Oh yeah.
You do a pretty
Most
good one there,
imitated
Jim.
guy in wrestling, old Macho.
I know that there's some fans that go around dressed as Savage and they come up and like
Oh,
cut a
some great
promo on
outfits,
Jake.
man. Well, he was so marketable. He was ahead of his time. All those great outfits and costumes and stuff. I remember one time Kurt Hennig came out and like, Macho, what's wrong with your hat? Macho runs into the dressing room, the hat's sitting. He goes, there's nothing wrong with that hat. And Kurt's like, it's supposed to look like that?
Oh my gosh. Ultimate River.
Yeah,
And look, I mean, Savage, I don't think it hurt him at all. We still see his face every time we go into a convenience store and there's beef jerky, you know?
yeah. Macho, they're still got his commercials out there now. I
Yep.
mean, and all his stuff is so collectible because at each WrestleMania or each pay-per-view, he'd wear a different outfit, and I know friends now that they got my buddy that I got the cape and crown from. Uh, he has a lot of Macho stuff, and it's really, really expensive, really collectible items.
I'll
Macho to
bet.
Macho.
The fact that Hogan and Savage did a year-long storyline, and now it's 35 years ago, and now here we are, it's 35 years later, and there's another year-long storyline with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns going on. I mean, what do you think about a year-long storyline, Jim? Is it too long? Should they do it more often?
Yeah, I think they should do it more often. If anything, the storyline, my opinion, the storyline should be longer. Now, excuse me, guys are changing babyface, heel back and forth. Belts change a lot. They don't really milk everything out of the story. Like DiBiase and I, we had a match, and then we had a best dressed man match, and then we had a best dressed man match in a cage. And we had a best dressed man match in a cage with loser leave town. I mean, it all fit together, and made the storyline, and the people were able to follow it.
And just like this Mega Power storyline, that's a storyline where you guys did it for a long time, and people still talk about it today. It left a real impression. So I'm with you. I think
Well, and those guys, I don't know if they were on the ins or outs, and I know they had the huge blow off, but they were tight when they were tight. Both lived down there in Clearwater. They had the big boats and the fast cars, and they were the king of the beach down there in Clearwater, both of them. And they hit the gym together and push each other hard. And that's how, you come up with good angles too when you're with your buddy. Like in the old days, you'd have four guys in the car, doing Jackson, Mississippi up to Little Rock down to Shreveport. We'd be driving. Hey, how about we try this? No, how about that? Hey, how about if you do this, I do that? And that way you're able to put together a match a little bit, come up with different ideas. I think
yes.
that probably happened with Hogan and Macho spending that much time together. They would come up with, okay, hey, I'll do this to you and you do that to me. And again, it's always easier to work with somebody you trust and somebody you know than somebody you don't.
Do you know why they went sideways with each other, Hogan and Savage? And I know they'd end up kind of being at odds
Something to
in
do
their
with
first
Liz,
one.
I guess.
Oh, okay.
And Deborah and Liz were tight because back then there wasn't a whole lot of women on the road, so it was Deborah, Sherry, and Liz, and they all knew each other. And and Macho was extremely possessive of Liz. I mean, he checked the mileage on the car if he'd leave her at home. I mean, he was kind of crazy over Liz.
Wow.
And, if you smother somebody like that, she finally, I think, had enough.
You're going to push him
And
away.
then she broke his heart. He really was devastated when she left. But he was extremely jealous. He wouldn't want her around the I'll tell you a quick one. We're flying over to Europe. We get over there and we're waiting for luggage. Luggage goes around. Jerry Shags, the Nasty Boys. Liz and Macho are standing there right by Jerry bends over in front of him and just. I mean, the largest, loudest, smelliest fart you can imagine. Nacho goes crazy. Oh, yeah, brother. Yeah, don't disrespect the Liz. Not a chance. So Macho takes Liz, sticks her on a plane, and flies her back to New York. Right?
Over a
So
fart.
from there, we're right there at the airport. We're Heathrow Airport. Flights go back and forth all the time, right?
Yeah.
Heathrow, every other hour, there's probably a flight to New York. They put on a flight back to New York. Jack Lanza calls Vince. He goes, Macho, Liz home. Vince, what? She's a huge part of the show, Liz. So he sends his people down. Liz lands in New York. They grab Liz. They stick her on the Concorde, flew her back to England. So Vince calls Sags and goes, Jerry, that's the most expensive gas you ever passed.
That is wow. That is not what I was expecting. That is a hell of a
Oh
story.
my God! Yeah, poor Liz, right over to Europe, back and back in the Concorde.
How many hours is that flight? It's she must have spent 20 hours in the air.
Oh, at least, yeah, at least. Yeah.
Man,
But,
all right. So a very expensive fart sends Liz across the
well,
world
I
a couple
think, yeah, I
times.
don't know if he'd find, I don't know if he was going to find Jerry or not, but I mean, it was, bodily function.
Could you imagine finding Jerry
But
Sachs
Sags
for a
might
fart?
have strategically placed himself.
Wow, they are the nasty boys, the gimmick
Oh
works.
my gosh! It was good to see. I saw both of them. They look good. This up at Squared Circle. Yep.
Well, let's get to your match, Jim. You're stepping into the ring with Bad News Brown on a pretty cold setup with no matches, but you got the match over. So we'll look at the
Yeah.
final minutes here. Let's get a look at that booger that stole the show.
Let's take a look at it.
Oh.
Oh, is that Tim White, the referee? I think.
Yep.
Well, like I said, I predicted there'd be
Jesse doing a good job.
rules, and that's exactly what we're getting, a fight. Haven't seen one yet. It's been a Pier 6 right from the beginning. But that, to me, that fits both their styles, so it's tough to say who's got the advantage.
Bad News was a real deal. He could go.
I've heard he was a legitimately tough guy.
Yeah. There's very few walks in the park in the business. Everybody can pretty much go. A nice bump for the guy.
That did look pretty vicious.
Yeah, I got that rubber gimmick on my knee there, trying to support it a little bit.
Okay, so you had the surgery already at this point?
I think I've already had it. I'm not sure, buddy. Uh-oh. Let's see, do I dive or run through it? Dive.
Oh.
See, then I stuck my left leg out. That's how I tore those cartilage. Uh-oh.
He didn't really sell the finish there, did he?
No, he didn't. Now you can point that out. Thanks, brother. You like causing trouble, don't you?
Can't help myself. At least it leads to this moment.
Half board will travel. I think the board was over more than me.
This is a street fight, Gorilla. And the referee's called for the bell. He's having none of it. This one is over.
Oh, a wrestling move.
Look at this, 2x4 clothesline. Bell's over the ring, though. It's insignificant.
Let's get a shot of the booger.
There it
Get
was.
close up.
That's what I'd have to figure.
It wasn't that bad. What's Bad News talking about all these years?
I don't think that was that bad at all.
I didn't see there's always a little something going on. Even when I'm talking to you sometimes.
You're out there huffing and puffing and snorting. I think a booger's bound to come out. Watching it back 35 years later, what'd you think, Jim?
Not bad. Like I said, for a cold match, both of us were brawlers. That's people like Hacksaw. What was your favorite move? I said, I kick and punch. I'm a brawler. I'm not a wrestler. And Bad News is more of a brawler. So we had the match. And, like you said, he didn't sell the finish very well. But I didn't really notice, tell you the truth. And then, got the 2x4 over at the end. And Brody taught me that years ago. He says, I can get beat every night. Beat me every single night. I can get my steam back after the match.
Yep.
So boom, beat me 1, 2, 3. I get a 2x4. Boom, I beat my opponent. I chest the timekeeper around. I run the referee off. Oh, USA! Doesn't matter if I won or lost. That's the deal. I don't care if I win the match. Long as I win the fight, tough guy. Oh! I'm fired up now,
Grab that
brother.
board,
I just
Jim.
happen to have one. Here we go. Oh,
Oh no.
a splinter. Oh,
Oh
that's my
man.
favorite joke. My daughters are like, Dad, don't tell that joke. But you'd be surprised that any time I get folks buy a 2x4, I say, let me tell you my 2x4 joke. So one time I got a splinter, and they're like, really? Like wrestler's honor.
Now you do that with your fans at the signings.
Oh yeah, you can have a good time with the folks, man. Or you can spend all that money to come wait in line and get an autograph. You'd be surprised how many guys are like this. Thank you, thank you. We're not even nothing. You know, hey, who's your favorite wrestler? Who do you like nowadays? Who's your all-time favorite? You know, at least have a little interaction with the folks, man.
I think it means a
Then it
lot to
makes it more
people.
fun for them, and it makes it more fun for me. I have, the day goes quicker instead of just sitting there signing autographs.
You make
And
it
as we
fun.
talked before, though, Marcus, it's humbling. I told you the story of the big tough guy that worked his way through the line, shook my hand, Hacksaw Duggan. Me and my dad, we used to watch you. I mean, get up, give the man a hug. I mean, people bring pictures of their grandma. We used to watch you together, It's humbling that so many folks remember the golden age of wrestling. Hogan, Macho, Jake the Snake, Andre the Giant, Junkyard Dog, Bret Hart. You can still name 10 guys without thinking about it.
Yep.
Still a good show, but that was the golden age.
There's no doubt about it, man. You guys made wrestling fun, and this episode was a lot of fun, Jim. I look back 35 years. It's been incredible. We got to do it with Royal Rumble. We've done it with WrestleMania. We're going to do it this summer with SummerSlam 1989. So stay tuned, folks. There's a lot left to discuss.
Are
And
we done, Marcus?
that's it, brother. That's it. See, I'm taking it
Holy
easy this
smokes,
week.
brother. I was just starting to warm up, kid.
My plan is to help you save your energy because you got a big weekend coming up there at WrestleCon. Again, folks, go to WrestleCon.com and check out all the big names that are going to be there. But especially get out there and see Jim because rumor has it he's coming with that crown
The
and
Cape
cape.
and Crown, actually, yeah, it's on loan today with some other folks, but I'll have it this coming weekend up there in Philadelphia.
So you're not just meeting Hacksaw Jim Duggan, you're meeting King Duggan this
King
weekend.
Duggan.
Man,
And you know what the owls say? What the British owls say?
what do they say?
Whom?
Whom?
I told you that joke the other day, brother.
How did I forget it?
Oh, yeah, right. That with all that's going on, the newborn, that Duggan's joke about British owls that go whom.
Between the newborn and the flood, man, there's some shit going on around here. But
brother, can you say that on TV?
Oh,
Do that
hey,
on Jake's podcast.
This is our podcast, Jim. We can cuss all we want, pal. But
well, that's what Jake and I both do the stand up, right? Jake is like triple X. I got to keep my family rated,
All right, I'll try to clean up the act. But
yeah, I'm really disappointed in you, buddy.
Sorry, man. But look, folks, get out to WrestleCon. If you can't get there, check Jim out on Cameo, cameo.com/Hacksaw Jim Duggan, or get to hacksawjimdugganshop.com if you want some signed merchandise, including those 1 foot 2x4s. That is assuming that Jake hasn't knocked them all off his table.
Full size one here.
There we go. There's the full size, but you can get a 1 foot length. He'll pull it out of his nose. But he'll not only sign it, he'll personalize it, whatever you guys want. Inscription. It's hacksawjimdugganshop.com. See, this is why YouTube is the perfect medium for Jim Duggan. We get the physical comedy. Jim, always a pleasure to talk to you, man.
Good to see you, Marcus. Nice talking to you, buddy.
We'll catch you guys next time right here on the Hacksaw Hour.
Bye, everybody.